Get the recording started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar about the Sponsor Community Project program at Asia. Especially earlier this year, we implemented the what we call the common pool concept. So this is an opportunity for our members to understand better how to utilize the SCP and what it's really all about. Please feel free to put up your hand at any time for any clarification questions. We'll also have a Q&A session right after the presentation. But welcome again, and I'll get it started. So one of the first things that is important is that the SCP or the Sponsor Community Project is really very much tied into the vision and mission of .Asia. The vision of .Asia being understanding that .Asia, the TLD itself, is not the only part. We stand for a collaborative and a cooperative atmosphere among the Asia Pacific internet community. And we believe this is going to help the growth of the internet and the Asia Pacific region overall. Our mission itself is to, of course, operate the .Asia top-level domain, but it's beyond that. We look to reinvest surpluses that comes into .Asia through our operations to support the development of the Asia Pacific Internet community, and it includes more, especially in the last 10 years or so, much more focused effort in internet governance, and especially engaging young people in participating and next generation in participating in internet governance ecosystem. So that's with that background, the SCP program actually was created very early in the stages of Asia. And one of the key considerations was to make sure that we actually income coming into Asia, at least a portion of that will go to support local and regional initiatives really that support internet development. For the program itself, there are currently three policy documents that is very important and part of it. One, and they are essentially the first three documents from the what we call the BCC series, which is the Board Community Projects Committee series. The first one being an operationalization of the .Asia core values and core competence. And this goes into the applications process, which is explained in the BCC 002, which is the Sponsor Community Projects process, in the way that the core values are essentially the questions of whether the project itself that is applied through the SCP program aligns with .Asia's mission and vision. And then a third document is the SCP reporting document, and that's that talks about after a project is funded and in the completion of the project, a report is then filed and is posted on the .Asia website. You can check it out actually at scp.dot.asia. That's the main site that we have, and that's the page that is shown on the right of the slide right now. One of the important things is that the SCP program, of course, it's a kind of a grants fund program, but it is a very lightweight grants fund program, and we depend on members to vet the grant recipient. Two things are important. One is that the grant recipient must not be the member itself. However, the grant recipient is most likely a local NGO, in the where the member is. Um, and the other important thing is we depend on the member, our Asia member, to tell us whether this grant recipient is actually a good organization to fund. And that vetting process is what we depend on our members to do. The other thing that is really important is that this is only one part of Asia's community contribution, and in fact, it is a small part, we believe, of what Asia contributes, how Asia contributes to the internet community, which I'll get to a little bit later. But the SCP program does ensure that at least a part of the income into Asia will be put to community use and can be used by community projects. Then, and that's the really the intent and the purpose of the SCP program. Now, for today especially, over the last year or so, the board has been working very hard to put together an extension of what the SCP project was. So the SCP program was launched all the way back in 2008 when Asia was first launched, and we first started having income. But since then, there has been some feedback from certain members. In particular, there are members where very few Asia registrations come in, and their pool of SCP funds for them is very small. I'll come back to this particular issue, but the one of the main things that we are trying to introduce today is the concept of the common pool mechanism for the SCP funds, which pulls together the different pots of SCP funds into a common pool that both sponsor members, which are CCTLDs around the region, as well as co-sponsor members of Asia, which are the regional organizations, can now make use of the SCP program and the funds. So with that, I'll go on to explain a little bit. Oh, actually, before that, um, here are just some of the programs that were funded previously, like all the way back in 2009, and they include the APNG CAN, they include APR-IGF, they include IGF itself, ICANN meetings. So we have supported many different projects. As you can see, before 2020, there was not a report requirement. And since 2020, when BCC 003 was put in place, projects that are seeking funding and were granted funding would then have be required to respond to file a report so that we can know better showcase some of the work that has been done with the support of the SCP funds. So going on, and as mentioned, this session is being recorded and we'll be posting it onto the scp.dot.asia page in the .asia website and for other members to view as well. So explaining the entire system, I'm going to try to explain the entire system. So the SCP funds are accrued for each regular .asia domain registration and renewal for a particular CC locality where there is a .asia sponsor member. So for example, since .jp is a .asia member, so any domain registration for .asia that comes in from Japan, and it's a regular price registration or a renewal, because promo pricing, sometimes it's a lower price and we're not able to set aside additional funds. But for regular registrations and renewals, a portion of that income actually goes into the SCP funds for the particular sponsor member locality. And I'll explain that a little bit more. So for a registration, of course, it goes through a .Asia registrar, and each of the all the registrars must have an ICANN accreditation. So as mentioned, once we receive the funds that actually for a registration, let's say coming in from Hong Kong, which 8.HK is also a member, then it goes into the SCP funds, and it sits into separate pools for the particular locality. And I'll explain that a little bit further. So as a .Asia member, so let's take the example of Hong Kong. The .Asia member is then could then work with a grant recipient. It could be one way or two way. A local grant recipient can reach out to the CCTLD or sponsoring member and work with them to look at potentially filing a proposal, an SCP proposal to .Asia. And you can, again, see it on our website. And it is essentially the policy document for BCC 002, which is the SCP process itself. And in it, there are the explains a little bit the requirements as well as the required information to be provided. But here I want to highlight that in this process, what happens is that the .Asia member is part of the submission, but the .Asia member is not a recipient, as explained earlier. One of the main reasons is because .Asia ourselves is a not-for-profit organization, and we are not to be distributing our revenues or any kind of quote-unquote dividends to our members. That is not something we are looking to do. But through our members, actually the most critical thing that we're looking for is for a member to really take a look at whether the grant recipient is the right organization to work with and it's worth providing the grants. Now, in terms of the evaluation process, it's actually a very lightweight process, although it does take a little bit of time because we do some due diligence through the board community project committee as well as the entire board and the advisory council for .Asia. But first of all, we actually, from the team, we would work with you as the member, as well as the grant recipient, if you so wish, to complete the submission of a complete proposal for the SCP funds. And then what happens is that we pass it over to the BCC, the Board Community Project Committee, and also the proposal is also passed on to the BFC and the Advisory Council. So to the BFC, obviously, for the financial components, and the Advisory Council for their input on the whether the grant recipient is a worthwhile organization, and also whether the proposal does fit in with .Asia's vision and mission. And that evaluation process takes about a month or two. The reason for the period of time would be the meeting cadence or the timing of the meetings of the board community project committee. And also finally, it is passed on to the .Asia board for approval. All of the SCP proposals do pass through the .Asia board for an approval because it is a release of funds from .Asia. So once that is complete, as mentioned, the approved funds actually goes directly to the grant recipient and not the .Asia member, and that's an important aspect wanted to particularly highlight. And thereupon, And we also have a very simple process. Essentially, right now, the entire fund requested is uh, is sent at one go. That reduces on administrative requirements and also makes it much easier for grant recipients. Again, the vetting process, the more important vetting process, we are depending on the .Asia member, and our evaluation process is really checking a few boxes and to ensure that the project itself does fall into the mission and vision of .Asia, which also is an important aspect for maintaining our not-for-profit status, because all our spending should fall into the vision and mission of .Asia as well. But as explained, the core values and the core competence part is actually quite broad. We support internet development and adoption, especially in educational program and for public benefit um, program that supports the an open and interoperable internet, and that's really essentially what we're looking for. And then finally, as mentioned, for BCC 003, that's where once the program is complete, the implementation of the proposal is complete, an SCP report should be submitted back to .Asia. That's signed off by the .Asia member as well, and that will be at least a part of it will be posted on the public website on .Asia. The reason why it's partial is because the financial component we will obviously redact unless specifically requested by the member or the grant recipient. The financial components will not be included except for the total amount funded. So how it's used and those kind of things will not be included in the publicly posted one, because that report is intended much more for as a showcase of some of the projects that is being done. So this has been the case for the last almost 20 years. Um, and it was originally only for sponsored members, which are the CCTLDs, because the funds accrual is done this way, and the funds itself, it comes from the particular .Asia member. So just as an example, for example, if it's Hong Kong again, if there were let's say 1,000 .Asia domain registered for Hong Kong from Hong Kong, then the pool of funds for Hong Kong would be $1,000, and the grant recipient can submit a proposal for funding up to $1,000. And if another member, let's say Korea, if there are 2,000 domains registered from Korea, there's 2,000 domains for grant recipients in Korea. But the Hong Kong side won't be, Hong Kong grant recipients will not be able to apply for that other $2,000, even though the entire SCP funds would say, in total for these two would have $3,000. So this presented a challenge in the past, which was brought up a couple of times. For a smaller CCTLD or a smaller area, or actually I shouldn't really say smaller or bigger, for areas where less .Asia domains are being registered, let's take the example of Macau. For Macau, they are a .Asia member, but .Asia domain registrations for Macau may only be just 20 over the year. And if there are 20 domain registrations and there's just $20 available for the SCP funds, then it doesn't make sense at all for any NGO from Macau to try to apply for the SCP funds, because then the amount would not be worthwhile for the whole application process itself. And that is part of the things that was raised, and that is also the reason why over the last year or so we have put together the common pool concept. This concept is actually raised in the advisory council when the advisory council was looking at some of the SCP process and suggested a way to pull together the funds between different members that could make it work. And furthermore, not only through sponsor members or CC localities, but also through regional organizations. So it means that NGOs from outside of the members' CC localities can also work with co-sponsor members, which is, for example, APNIC or APTLD or APNG and so on, to apply through the member to the SCP funds common pool. How this works is that in while at first the SCP funds come in through .Asia registrations into specific CCTLD or sponsor member pools, as I was explaining, let's say 1,000 from Hong Kong and 2,000 from Korea. But after 3 years, they expire. The idea is that after 3 years, they will expire from the sponsor member only pool and drop into the common pool. Let's say during the 3 years, there was no application from Hong Kong, and there was one application for $1,000 through Korea. So Korea dropped from 2,000 to 1,000, where there's also 1,000 in Hong Kong. And then there is $20 from Macau. So all of these $2,020 then drops into the SCP common pool funds. And in the common pool, what happens is that Macau or any other locality, or even without .Asia member CCTLDs, the NGOs can work with a .Asia member to apply through to the common pool, which in my example would have $2,020, which could represent a meaningful grant fund to apply from. And that is essentially what the common pool concept is about. Of course, I think all of the members should have received a report. In fact, all members, we do send members a report every year explaining to them the funds in their particular pool in the case of sponsor members. But since last December, when we first sent out the SCP updates, co-sponsor members are also receiving the update for the first time, which provided an information about the common pool. I can just note that in this first year, there's about $70,000 that are allocated to the common pool, and that is amounts that both sponsor member grant recipients as well as co-sponsor member grant recipients can utilize. And this one of the key aspects is that it also addresses some of the issues of the member CC localities where less .Asia domain names are being registered. But I wanted to finally say that the funds in the SCP common pool also expires after another 3 years. So after a total of 6 years, they expire and are allocated to support other community projects at .Asia. And that's a very important part of it because .Asia also operates operates a number of meaningful community projects, which I'm sure you are well aware of. If not, we're happy to talk a little bit more, and I'll touch on that in a little bit further as well. But what I did want to say here also is that to make it clear, sponsor members and grant recipients from sponsor members CCTLD localities can apply for both the member pool as well as the common pool. But of course, we will allocate the amount that is within the specific sponsor member pool first, and then look at the common pool. And if the project itself applies for funds in the specific sponsor member pool and wish to expand it to common pool, that would probably be two applications. And also would be a special process for the evaluation, because I guess that will be something new that the BCC and also the board will look into. But in any case, overall, the intent is that .Asia member sponsor members, which are CCTLDs, can apply to both the SCP member pool as well as the SCP common pool. And so what I did want to note is that the whole concept of the SCP program itself is to ensure that every .Asia domain actually contributes to internet development in Asia Pacific region. And that has been what we've been doing all along. And just because, and I want to highlight that the SCP program is only one small part of how .Asia contributes to the wider internet governance ecosystem. I would highlight a few of the projects that are ongoing. One, of course, is a long-standing youth engagement program in NetMission.Asia. NetMission is the longest-standing youth internet governance engagement program around the world, and we are very proud of their work, especially with the policy input that the NetMission Youth Alumni Network have been able to push through, especially in last year's WSIS Plus 20 process, the World Summit on Information Society resolution that was passed by the UN General Assembly. The NetMission alumni team was successful in pushing through youth as a distinctive and important stakeholder group in internet governance discussion. And I think this is we are very proud of them, and we are very proud of the project that we are supporting through NetMission.Asia. Building on NetMission, actually, NetMission was started in 2009, and APRIGF started in 2010. In fact, the first APRIGF already featured a NetMission-run Youth Internet Governance Forum, which also was one of the very first Youth Internet Governance Forum around the world. For the APRIGF, .Asia continues to serve as the secretariat for the APRIGF and for the community. Each year, this is in terms of our budget allocation. In fact, APRIGF occupies one of the largest budget allocation for .Asia in terms of community contribution, in terms of our people time, as well as travel to support the APRIGF as it happens. We, of course, also leverage funding from the host and sponsorship from commercial as well as regional organizations such as APNIC, such as ISOC, such as ICANN as well. But .Asia is one of the, serving as the secretariat, does represent one important part of supporting the APRIGF initiative. And finally, this little tiger that you may have seen is Agitora, and the project was started in 2016 when the UN Sustainable Development Goals, or otherwise known as SDGs, were put in place. And Aji and work straddles both the sustainability as well as our work in promoting .Asia domains. Um, and more recently, coming out of the pandemic, actually starting in 2021, a pilot report was put together in what we call the Eco Internet Initiative, which looked at the eco-friendliness of the internet infrastructure across different jurisdictions in the Asia Pacific region. And you can see the ranking and the score and so on. The ranking and the score is a useful conversation starter, but more importantly, we are hoping to change the narrative of eco-friendliness of the internet. It's not about watching shorter videos or sending shorter emails, but how the internet transforms the economy, how the internet replaces more carbon-heavy uses and industries that may be as important as the absolute carbon footprint of the internet itself, which obviously is growing because the internet itself is growing. So these are some of the projects that we work into. And of course, the fourth area that .Asia does, which starts everything else, is the .Asia domain itself. Um, in all, there are four main areas of .Asia works, which a lot of the income helps support. First of all is, of course, our work in net mission and internet governance. And then our market awareness and market development initiatives for .Asia. And as mentioned, Aji serves as something in between, but also focusing on the sustainable development goals. And a fourth pillar is our governance itself. For many years, .Asia was operated and was operating in a relatively informal manner. In recent years, especially since 2019, a lot of the governance structure has been developed, and especially with the amended articles a couple years ago and the transition through the governance structure, the .Asia governance framework is now a lot more stronger and also represents an important pillar among the four that .Asia focuses on. And this, all four of them, is actually incorporated into the .Asia strategic plan. And the strategic plan itself, as you can see, you can check it out on our website. But if you dig deeper into it, all the measures and the key areas of strategic development are actually developed around these four pillars, including the internet governance and community engagement, the .Asia registry itself, which is the market development, Agitura, and the other .Asia works, including multilingual internet, including sustainability, and so on. And finally, the .Asia organization and governance. So all in all, this is what I wanted to tell you about. The SCP program has expanded with the common pool concept, and hopefully you understand also that as the funds expire, of course we welcome and encourage you to utilize the funds in the SCP funds and the program through the program. But if you are not utilizing it, rest be assured that the expired funds also go into good usage through .Asia directly supported community projects. With that, thank you for listening in, and we'll like to see if there are any questions. Any questions from those online? I see two questions coming in from the chat. First one, were the applications of the projects listed on the page submitted through the respective sponsoring members? The short answer is yes. Each of them, we also indicate the member that for which the application was submitted through. So you should be able to see it in the list. Is it possible for an SCP application to be submitted to .asia team directly instead of through? So what happens is that if we receive an application that way, we have received requests and we direct them to the member. If we do that, if we do receive it, we will direct it through the particular sponsoring member, whether it's if the potential applicant is coming through a country or jurisdiction that there is a .asia ccTLD member, then we will refer it to them. If not, now with the common pool implemented, we could direct them through one of the co-sponsor members to go through. The reason why, as I was explaining earlier, in our evaluation process, we are very lightweight on the vetting process and also the funds disbursement process. The funds are dispersed at one go, as mentioned, and we do very little in terms of vetting whether the organization has a good reputation in the particular locality. And that's the part we rely on the sponsoring member to help us with. So, for example, if there is an NGO coming in from Singapore, we don't know them as well, but perhaps .sg might know them better, or at least can help us ask the local community whether the particular NGO or the applicant is a reputable and good organization to fund. And that's where that's really the core part of applying through a sponsoring member. Does that make sense? You can feel free to take the mic as well. Okay, yep, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, seeing no further questions, I will thank everyone for tuning in again. I will note that the session was recorded and we will be posting it on the SCP page for others as well.